The sun was barely over the rooftops when the sound of breaking glass cut through the quiet street. Dean Rowan dropped the grocery bag in his hand. Apples rolled across the cracked pavement as he looked toward the alley where the sound came from. He saw them then, three rough-looking men in leather jackets, tattoos crawling up their necks, circling two frightened children beside a black SUV. The boy clutched his sister's hand, his face pale as chalk. The girl's soft curls shimmered in the sunlight, tears streaking down her cheeks. Dean's breath caught. The twins couldn't have been more than 8. He didn't know who they were, but he knew one thing. Those kids were in trouble, and he couldn't just walk away. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because stories like this deserve to be seen and remembered. Dean's boots hit the asphalt hard as he crossed the street, his shadow stretching long in the morning light. "Hey!" he shouted, his voice echoing off the alley walls. The thugs turned, sneers curling on their faces. The tallest one, with a scar slashing across his cheek, stepped forward. "What's it to you, old man?" he hissed. Dean clenched his fists. He wasn't old, just worn. A 38-year-old single dad who'd spent too many nights sleeping in his pickup after double shifts. "Back away now," he said quietly, the kind of quiet that made people listen. "They're kids." The men laughed, circling closer. Behind Dean, the boy's shaky voice broke through. "Mister, please." But Dean didn't turn around. He just moved slightly to the side, placing himself between the twins and the thugs. His heart hammered against his ribs. He hadn't been in a fight in years, not since before his wife's accident. But he remembered what fear looked like in a child's eyes. He'd seen it too many times in his own sons after the crash. The way little Ben used to wake screaming for his mom. The first thug swung. Dean ducked instinctively, grabbed the man's arm, and shoved him hard into the alley wall. The second lunged forward. Dean caught a fist to the jaw but didn't go down. The kids gasped behind him. Adrenaline drowned out the pain. He blocked, dodged, struck back. Years of exhaustion had left his body slower. But his heart, that burned hotter than ever. He wasn't fighting for pride. He was fighting to protect. It was over in less than a minute. The thugs, bruised and startled, backed away as the scarred one spat on the ground. "You don't know who you're messing with," he growled, retreating toward a black car parked nearby. Dean wiped his mouth, blood on his knuckles. "And you don't know who you're threatening," he said, voice steady. When the car screeched off, the alley fell silent except for the faint sobs of the girl. Dean turned, crouched low, and offered his hand. "You're okay now, I promise." The boy hesitated, then grabbed it, trembling. "Thank you, sir," he whispered. "We didn't know where to go. We just wanted ice cream." Dean smiled faintly despite the pain in his ribs. "You picked the wrong street for that, buddy." He helped them up and led them out of the alley. As the sunlight hit their faces, he finally saw what he'd missed before. Their clothes were far too fine for this part of town. The girl's shoes were white leather, her hair held by a golden pin. The boy wore a designer shirt, clearly expensive. These weren't local kids. He knelt down. "Where are your parents?" The boy bit his lip. "They were supposed to meet us at the park, but our driver, he just left us there." Dean frowned. "Left you?" The girl nodded. "He got a call, then drove off. We tried to find a taxi, but those men showed up." Her voice broke again. Dean felt something twist in his chest. Whoever these kids were, they weren't just lost. Someone had targeted them. He took a deep breath. "Okay, listen, my truck's around the corner. Let's get you somewhere safe, all right?" They nodded, still shaking. He opened the rusty door of his old pickup and helped them climb in. As they drove through the city's edge, Dean couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was going on. The boy's watch alone could have paid his month's rent. And when he asked for their names, the answer nearly made him slam the brakes. "I'm Theo," the boy said softly, "and this is my sister Isla. Our last name's Kensington." Dean's eyes widened. Kensington, as in the Kensington family. The billionaire developers who owned half the city. He'd seen their faces on billboards in magazines. And now their children were sitting in his beat-up truck with scraped knees and tear-streaked cheeks. He parked outside a small diner on the highway and grabbed his phone. But before he could call the police, Theo tugged his sleeve. "Please don't," the boy whispered. "If you tell anyone, they'll find us." "Ooh," Dean asked gently. Theo looked at his sister, then back. The men who took our driver. They said if we told the police, they'd hurt Dad. Dean froze. The world around him seemed to tilt slightly. He knew fear, but this was something else. A web of danger that reached far beyond anything he'd expected. Still, he couldn't abandon them. He ordered pancakes and chocolate milk, watched them eat slowly, exhaustion in their eyes. Isla's head eventually dropped against his arm, and for a moment, she looked just like Ben when he fell asleep in the car. Dean called his sister, a nurse who worked at the county hospital. "Mara, I need a favor," he said quietly. "Two kids, scared out of their minds. I think they're in serious trouble." By afternoon, news alerts started popping up on the diner's TV. Billionaire twins missing. Search underway for Kensington Hares. Dean's stomach dropped. The waitress gasped. "Oh my God, those are the kids." Dean's pulse quickened. He turned to them. Theo and Isla stared at the screen, terrified. "They'll find us," Isla whispered. "No," Dean said firmly, standing. "They'll have to go through me first." He took them to his late father's cabin outside town, a place he hadn't visited since before his wife's passing. It was quiet there, surrounded by tall pines and sunlight filtering through the branches. Dean set up blankets, made soup from what little he had, and watched as the kids slowly began to smile again. Theo helped gather firewood. Isla fed stray birds by the porch. For the first time in years, Dean felt something close to peace. But peace doesn't last long when the powerful are threatened. That night, headlights cut through the trees. The growl of engines echoed down the dirt road. Dean's breath caught. Black SUVs again, at least 3 of them. He rushed inside, whispering, "Stay behind me. Don't make a sound." Theo grabbed his sister's hand. Dean stepped outside, his heart pounding like thunder. Men in suits emerged, the scarred thug among them. This time they weren't laughing. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you," the scarred man sneered. "They're children?" Dean said, voice low. "Not things." The man smiled coldly. "You don't get it, do you? Their father owes people money. Big money. We're just collecting collateral." Dean's fists tightened. "You'll have to go through me." The man laughed, until Dean moved. It wasn't a fair fight, not even close. Dean took a hit to the ribs, stumbled, then drove his shoulder into one of them, knocking him into the gravel. Pain ripped through his side, but he didn't stop. He heard Isla scream his name, and something inside him, something buried since the day he lost his wife, ignited. He fought like a man who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. Then, out of nowhere, sirens wailed. Blue and red lights flashed through the trees. The SUVs peeled back in chaos as police cars surrounded them. Dean staggered, bruised and bleeding, as officers stormed the scene. From one of the vehicles that pulled up, a tall man in a dark coat stepped out, silver hair, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that silenced a crowd. Theo gasped. "Dad," he cried, running forward. The man dropped to his knees, wrapping both children in his arms, tears streaking down his face. "My babies, I thought I lost you." The man looked up then, meeting Dean's eyes. "You're the one who kept them safe." Dean nodded silently, too tired to speak. 2 days later, Dean found himself sitting in a quiet office overlooking the city skyline. The billionaire Alexander Kensington poured him a glass of water. "You could have walked away," Alexander said softly. "Most would have." Dean shrugged. "I've been where they were, scared, alone. Someone helped me once. It was the least I could do." Alexander studied him for a long moment. "You're a good man, Mr. Rowan. Tell me, what do you do for work?" Dean hesitated. "I'm a mechanic, or I was. Laid off last month." The billionaire smiled faintly. "Not anymore. I could use a man who stands up when it matters." He slid a business card across the desk. "Come work for me. Head of vehicle operations. And thank you for bringing my children back." Dean stared at the card, unable to speak. For years he'd fought to keep his son fed, his home standing, his hope alive. Now somehow, kindness had found its way back to him. When he returned home that evening, Ben ran into his arms laughing. Dean lifted him high, despite the bruises that still ached. "Guess what, buddy?" he whispered. "We're gonna be okay." And for the first time in a long, long while, he believed it. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it, and subscribe to Kindness Journal to keep more real stories of courage and compassion alive. Special request: comment below. Would you have stood your ground like Dean did? Tell us your thoughts. Because sometimes, Standing up for what's right, even when you're scared, is the moment that changes everything.